very pleased.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Speakers and Leaders Hour. I'm Dave Wilkins, your host, your absent host, I have to say, for about the past year. And I have to thank several people for carrying on and doing such a wonderful job, and I'm going to introduce those before I talk about myself a little bit. At the far end of the table, I'd like to introduce Marlene Purdy, a past district governor and a past division governor here in Division B. Marlene, thank you so much for being here and helping out during the last year.
I am so glad you're back, though.
Well, it's good to be back. Okay.
It's great.
And one of the mainstays for keeping us on the air for the past year has been Mr. Dennis Osborn. Dennis has done a yeoman's job, and Dennis, thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you very much, Dave. I'm glad that you are indeed back with us.
Well, it's a joy to be back. And a member of the Anthony Wayne Toastmasters, a friend of mine from a long time ago, a really good woodworker and a Toastmaster. Let's welcome Mr. Leon Kowalenko. Leon, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dave. It's so good to see you in that chair again hosting this program.
Well, it's kind of good to be back, I have to say that. And last but not least, my friend Tom Haller from the Anthony Wayne Toastmasters and the New Advanced Club. Tom, thank you for being here, and thank you for helping over the past year.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure. I enjoy being here, but I'm even happier that you're here.
Well,
that's the main thing.
As a matter of fact, it is a joy for me to be back here this evening. And if you don't know, I've had a rather adventuresome year. Since last I was truly on the program, I've been to Indianapolis to the Methodist Hospital at IU, and I have had a double lung transplant. Some things I did over the years that were not probably the most healthy caused me to have this transplant, and I am happy to say that it was a wonderful success, and it's allowed me to be back on the air here at Access Fort Wayne. And not only am I thanking the people here at the table in front of me, I also need to thank Bob and Patty Hunter for helping out over the past year, and indeed continuing, along with Paul Brandt, Dennis Osborn, as I mentioned earlier, and of course Elizabeth Lord. She's our director this evening, and Access Fort Wayne. So it's really good to be back. And now the reason that we're here live in the Allen County Library is to talk about Toastmasters and Robert's Rules of Order or Parliamentary Procedure. As I said, we're live. You can call us. That number is 422-3902. And we plan on this evening doing the first half, doing a mock Toastmaster meeting with a couple of speeches. And this will give you a demonstration of the kind of speeches that we see in our regular club meeting. We have two presenters this evening who are going to give us speeches. The first one is Mr. Tom Haller. And Tom Haller, as he moves over to the microphone, I'd like to give you a nice introduction. He's speaking from the Advanced Manual, Humorously Speaking. He is a past as well as a future area governor here in Division B. And he's a longtime Toastmaster and a new member of the Parliamentary Society. With his speech from the Humorously Speaking Manual, A Lazy Man, let's welcome Mr. Tom Haller.
Thank you, Dave, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome people in TV land. I am a lazy man, and I am proud of it. We are the last minority group that may be picked on without ramifications. Do not dare say anything to anybody about their ethnic, sexual orientation or anything, but we, the lazy people, are fair game. It is time that we get over this. We are responsible for civilization being on the right course, for life being as good as it is. Let me give you just a small example from my life. I used to help out at a museum. One day I went to the museum and a whole bunch of women were moving things from one part of the museum to another. They would each pick up all they could carry and trot off. I, being a lazy man, looked this over and said, a museum this size must surely have a cart. So I went and found the cart. We loaded up the cart, took 2 or 3 loads over. That's all there was to it. Was I ingenious? No, I was lazy. I spent most of my life in the factory. Let us consider a typical factory, row after row of people. Very often, obviously jobs differ, you will find that they have a machine where they're sitting on a stool. They have to sit on the stool because they have something for their left hand to do, something for their right hand to do, something for their left foot to do, something for their right foot to do. And they have to concentrate very hard on this, as well as being very physical about it. An expert, an efficiency expert, will come along and look this over, and let us consider what an efficiency expert is. Let's examine the word ex, the former, the no longer current, a has-been, like an ex-spouse. And the other half of the word, spurt. This is a has-been, this is a spurt is a drip under pressure. So what an expert is a has-been drip under pressure. So he comes along, he sees this, he says, ah. Now the average person would say, man, these guys and women, they're maxed out. There's nothing more they can do. He looks at them and says, let's stick a broom up their hind end, and they can do a little sweeping while they're there. Then he wanders back to his office and wonders why he has never been invited to join the bowling team for the employees. Now, a lazy man walks in there and says, good grief, this is the 21st century. We can easily do all of this with a computer. It can all be automated. We can lay off all these people. There will be but one person remaining. He'll have an air-conditioned office. He'll run a computer. It'll be automated to the point it won't matter much if he take a little nap while he's in there, she. Won't need to worry about cleaning it because there'll be no employees left to speak of to get it dirty. That is when progress is made. They will even be competitive with the Chinese now. Their only advantage is cheap labor. We have no labor, cheap or otherwise. So, we, the lazy people, are what's saving the world. Now, this has been obscured somewhat by people passing as ambitious when they were really lazy. Do you think the people that invented the automobile were super intelligent? They were lazy. Did you ever take care of a horse? You have to feed it, you have to water it, you have to muck out its stable, you have to comb it, you have to shoe it. It just goes on forever. Somebody was too lazy to take care of his horse, so he invented the car. Now, Henry Ford was too lazy to get a job good enough to buy one of the expensive handmade cars. So he went out and invented the automated procedures, the assembly line to make a car at a reasonable price. Coincidentally becoming rich enough that he could afford to buy any kind of a car he wanted to in the process. Let's examine Alexander Graham Bell. You might think he was a hard-working man, but what did he first say into the telephone? He said, Watson, come here, I need you. He didn't say, Watson, stay where you are, I'm coming to you. He didn't say, Watson, start walking towards me and we'll meet in the middle. No, he said, Watson, come here, I need you. He was too lazy to even write out a memo and send it, to somebody to have Watson come to him. Thomas Edison has been responsible for really obscuring the laziness thing. He is the one who said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. The reality is that he was too lazy to take care of the candles in his house. You have to light them, you have to snuff them out, you have to replace them, you have to trim them. He didn't want to do all that, so he invented electricity. He was too lazy to go practice with the choir to sing, so he invented the phonograph. You say, what about the motion pictures? Didn't he give us motion pictures? Well, of course he did. He was too lazy to play with his kids. He wouldn't even do the shadow thing on the wall with them. So he invented motion pictures. And then he had the nerve to insist that he was hardworking. Now, we, the lazy people, are what result in the advancement of civilization. We are the true heroes. Now, we are not so demanding as to expect anybody to go to the work of making statues of us. But the occasional three-dimension hologram, would that be asking too much? Really, I think if you look at it fairly, that would be the very least we would deserve. Dave, take it away.
Thank you very much, Tom. Now that's an example of an advanced communicator's speech here at Toastmasters. We have a basic manual that we work from, and when I say we, I am talking about all of the clubs in the Fort Wayne area. And as I said earlier, we are a live show, so if you'd like to comment on what you're hearing, or you have a question about Toastmasters, remember that number is 422-3902. We have operators standing by to take your call and your questions. And also, not only do we have the advanced manuals, we have a basic manual. That manual has actually it has 10 projects in it, but we're going to hear about one of the 4th projects from our next speaker tonight, who is speaking from the basic manual project, as I said, number 4. He's been with Toastmasters several years now. He's currently served as Anthony Wayne Toastmasters treasurer, and we really treasure him at that job. He is doing a wonderful job. Aside from that, he's been the vice president of education. He's been the club secretary and served twice as area governor, and I believe once as Toastmaster club president. Tonight, he's doing a special presentation from the Competent Communicator Manual, and he's speaking on the topic, where and when do Toastmasters meet? Let's welcome Leon Kowalenko.
Thank you. I want to welcome our audience tonight. Thank you for joining in. And after tonight's meeting, I invite all of you to get on the Toastmasters website and learn more about Toastmasters. Tonight I'm going to just show you a little bit of what's on there, mostly how to find a club, where clubs meet, and what times they meet if you would like to come to a club and right now you don't know where a club meets. Invite you to go to the website. You know, so many things are on the website nowadays. Last month I got a postcard from the Indiana driver's license. They said I had to renew my driver's license online. And I kind of dreaded that. I'd never done that before, but truthfully it went pretty easy. As long as there's no changes in your life, like address changes and any points against you and things like that, you can renew it and have a credit card handy, and they will use your previous pictures. So everything seems to be going on the website. A nice thing about the website, though, Toastmasters has an excellent website. And what we're showing you is some slides. These are actual images from Toastmasters website. A couple things I want to point out to you when you first log on. You would type in toastmasters.org, O-R-G, not .com like we're so used to, so keep that in mind. If you have trouble, you can get on and Google it, and it'll get you there eventually also. There's things you can find on there, how to join a club, if you're interested in that. Another thing, there's free resources. You don't have to be a member. There's free resources if you want to work on enhancing your speeches. But the thing that you want to do is, if you're going to find a club, there is an area there, upper right hand, says where leaders are made. You click below that, and it says find a club near you. And so on the next slide, once you click on that, it'll launch you to the next slide, which shows information on there. It's a screen that shows, it says find meeting locations, and we'll go to the next slide. It's just a little larger, might help you see a little bit better. And there you can check in as much information as you would like in order to complete your search. If you're not sure, I would suggest putting in your zip code and then click on all the days of the week. You can see 7 days you can choose from. And click on those, and then also you can click on if you're looking for an AM or a PM club meeting. So once you click on those items, then you hit find, and they'll launch you to the next site. And there, depending on how many items you clicked, in this example, I clicked all 7 days of the week, PM, and they also gave you a choice. Do you want it within 10 miles, 25 miles, or 50-mile radius? So depending on how far you're willing to drive, you would click on the appropriate one. But the neat part is, if you notice there, it shows you a map also. So if you're not sure where it is, maybe you live in a nearby town and you're not familiar maybe with the Fort Wayne area, well, the map would get you there. So by browsing down, you're going to find information on all the clubs. They got information such as the club name, the address where the club meets, the meeting time, and the day. Some clubs only meet maybe a couple times a week. Some meet on a regular basis. So all that information is there for you. One other thing, it talks about club status. There's two types of criteria. One is the club is open to all, and most clubs are. That means the public is invited to come to any of these meetings. You have other clubs, they call them closed clubs, or maybe eligibility requirements are in play, and that means maybe a closed club would be maybe a large company would have their own Toastmasters meeting within the walls of their company, and it would be limited just to those people. Some it's done for security reasons, so if you ever see that, that means you would not be eligible to participate with them. But there's so many other clubs that are open that you would be free to join those. So that's just a little bit of information that's on the website. Once again, it's got a lot of information, not only for people that are seeking information about Toastmasters, but for members too. There's a lot of information for members. Also, you can buy gifts. There's just so much information there. I invite you after this meeting, click on there and see what's out there. But more important than that, find a club that you would like to visit and pay us a visit. We'd love to see you. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Leon. What a great presentation that was, and what information that we need for our clubs. So thank you very much. If I could ask you a couple questions, have you actually used the website to find the clubs?
Another time you can use, I was going to suggest this for some current Toastmasters, maybe when they go out of town and you're wondering how other clubs participate or run their meetings. This would be a good place to search to see. And this happened to me some years ago when I was working for a company. I traveled quite a bit, so if I was going to be in a city for a couple of days, I would actually see if there's a Toastmaster meeting and actually go and participate.
And how did that work out for you?
Real well. Just like us, we love to have visitors, and other clubs like to have visitors too, especially if they're Toastmasters. They want some feedback. Well, how does your club do it? Are we doing it the way you guys do it, and things like that?
Well, that's great. Okay. And you did that some years ago, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, now the most important thing about Toastmasters is the fact that the speeches are evaluated. Now, not to say they're criticized, but they're evaluated, and that is to say the evaluation is such that it gives you suggestions on where you might improve the next time, as well as pats on the back for things that you have done correctly. And that's really the heart and the soul of the Toastmaster program. We have several clubs here, and we're going to talk about which clubs are represented in a little bit. But right now we're going to ask Marlene Purdy to evaluate the speech that Leon just gave. Marlene, please.
Well, actually, I want to do Tom's speech first. I'm going to do Tom's speech first, and then I'm going to do Leon's. So, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Tom. He did the speech from an advanced manual, humorously speaking, and the purpose of the speech is to keep them laughing. And the purpose of this project was for the speaker to present a 5 to 7 minute speech that begins with a self-deprecating joke and includes at least 2 sets of jokes in the speech body, with each set composed of several jokes. Well, actually, Tom, I really enjoyed your speech because you had not these roaring laughing kind, the belly laughing kind, but they're the kind that you sit back there and, oh, yes, that was really funny, the chuckling kind. And you have them interspersed throughout the speech. Starting off, the self-deprecating one, you admitted to being lazy. But I liked how you used the transition and used the lazy theme throughout the speech to relate things that I always thought were very inventive, and he mentioned that in his speech, but actually giving credit to being lazy for coming up with these things. And I thought that made the whole speech. And this is an example of what Toastmasters considers a humorous speech. They are not supposed to be one-liners, and they weren't. It was just, and it all related back to the factory assembly line, and having worked on an assembly line, I could identify with sitting on the stool and your gestures of reaching for the different things. I learned very quickly how to work with one hand for a little bit and then work across the hand, and so I was able to relate a lot of what you were saying in the speech. And so the theme of the laziness shared throughout the speech was really, really good. If I had any suggestions at all for improvement, it would have been you might have tried for a little smoother delivery. Sometimes it became a little choppy, but overall, I enjoyed it. Thank you, Tom. And now, if I can find my notes for the second speech. Again, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, and especially Leon. His speech was from the basic manual, Persuade with Power, Where and When Do Toastmasters Meet? Very well delivered, lots and lots of good information. I especially liked the fact that, being a longtime member, you're very credible as far as this topic. And using the website and having it up on the screen, we were able to see how you move through all these steps. So it was very, very well done in that respect. Did the speech opening capture the audience interest? That was one area that I thought that you might have improved upon. It could have been a little more catchy. I'm not sure what exactly, but you might have come up with something a little more catchy to get our interest right off the bat. And you followed through very well as far as the different website options and going down through them. Very well done. And I thought it was very, very informative. You explained the options very, very well. If there were anything, you might have picked a different speech goal for that particular speech, because it was more informative than Persuading with Power, which is the one that you selected. So, because there wasn't an emotional thing, but very, very informative, and I hope that our audience, not only here in the studio, but out in TV land, learned a lot. Thank you, Leon. Mr. Toastmaster.
Very good evaluations. I mentioned earlier that there are several clubs represented here, and I think it's important to mention right now that regardless of which club you go to, you see the same basic format, the same basic structure. However, each club has their own personality and they put their own spin on it. So I think we have at least 4 or 5 clubs represented here, and I'd like to take a moment and, starting with Marlene, give a promo for your club.
Well, my local club is the Bob Lyman Toastmasters Club, number 666. We meet at Pizza Hut on the 2nd and 4th Mondays of the month. We usually arrive between 5:30 and 6 o'clock to eat some really good food, and then the meeting starts promptly at 6:30. I also belong to the advanced...
Okay, I think maybe we could let Dennis talk about that one.
Okay, I want to mention another one,
Oh.
because I don't know if
Oh.
anybody out in Defiance ever gets Fort Wayne radio or TV
Okay.
stations, but I also belong to the Defiance, Ohio Simply Speaking Club.
Okay, wow, okay. Are there any others in Ohio that you belong to?
No, that's the only one. That
Yeah.
was one of my babies that I helped sponsor many years ago, and they meet on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays of the month.
Oh, okay. So Toastmasters is worldwide and also from state to state, lots of clubs. Dennis, can you talk about the Advanced Club and where it meets and when?
Yes, I actually belong to two Toastmasters Club plus the Parliamentarian Club. The Bob Lyman Toastmasters Club, which meets at the North Crest Pizza Hut on the 2nd and 4th Monday of the month. Then I belong to the Advanced Speakers and Leaders Club, which meets, currently is meeting here in the Allen County Public Library the first Monday of the month, up in the Business and Technology conference room, up on the 2nd floor. Starts at 6:30 and ends before 8.
Okay.
Then I am the president of what would be the second half of the show.
Well, we'll talk about that
Okay.
in the second half. How will that be? Okay.
That'll be fine.
Okay, how about Leon and you? What club do you belong to?
I belong to several, but I'll promote Anthony Wayne Toastmasters. We meet Thursday evenings at Ivy Tech. We meet every week. unless it's a holiday week, room 1550. And a lot of people, since it's right around supper time, they can bring in a lunch or a snack and they'll socialize a little bit before we start our meeting. But we have a great facility. It's on the first floor, free parking. We invite anybody to come out Thursdays at 6:30.
Okay. And Tom, I know you're president of a club. Could you talk about that one, please?
I could. It's the Advanced Speakers and Leaders Club. There's already been some discussion about it.
Okay.
We do indeed meet here at this library the first Monday of every month. I'll let you in on a little secret. All evening clubs meet at 6:30. It does meet at 6:30. Also, I'm a member of the Anthony Wayne Club, as are several other people here. I would say, in addition to what's been said, we meet every week, so you have a little more chance to get in the speeches you need. And we also have excellent equipment to make a PowerPoint presentation or whatever kind of technical equipment you would need. It is available there at Ivy Tech. It is a college, and we have those facilities, so that's very nice.
That's a real blessing to have all that special equipment to use there. And then to have some members who know how to do it too, because that wouldn't be me, Tom. Okay, and I belong to several of these clubs, but I also belong to the Bearfield Toastmasters, and they meet on the south side of Fort Wayne. In fact, they're the best club on the south side of Fort Wayne. They meet right now this evening, Tuesday evening, and they meet at the Penguin Point on Lower Huntington Road at Winchester. And as Tom said, all clubs meet at 6:30 in the evening, and it too is one of the nicer clubs here in Fort Wayne, and that's Bearfield Toastmasters. And if those haven't been enough for you this evening, call down here and we will help you find a club. There are about 20 here in the Fort Wayne area, and that number here in the library, if you want to reach us this evening, is 422-3902. Now, we've exhausted most of the things about the Toastmaster half. I did want to mention that we have some area speech contests coming up, and that's the international contest and also the table topics. And isn't the date for that, is it the 18th of February, I believe?
I believe so.
Marlene, do you know? Dennis, do you know?
I'm looking at it right now.
Sounds correct, Dave.
I do know that it will be here in this library.
Okay.
Very near where we're taping this.
Okay.
The area contest is the 18th of this month at 9 o'clock in the morning.
9 o'clock.
And then again at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay, sounds good. All righty, well, we are at the point in the program where we want to take a little bit of a break, show you some rather humorous PSAs about Toastmasters, and when we come back, we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk about Robert's Rules of Order and parliamentary procedure. So we will see you on the other side of the break.
Thank you very much. And now for our next speaker, Stanley Glitchner.
Speaking in public doesn't have to be a death sentence. At Toastmasters, we can help you overcome your fears.
I'd like to begin tonight with a little joke. This guy, he's a farmer, and he says, hey, hello, sorry. But seriously, folks.
Speaking in public is no joke.
Farmer says, doctor says, chicken says.
For help, call Toastmasters, the public speaking support group.
The chicken.
All the education in the world won't help you get ahead in life if you can't express your ideas effectively. Every day, competition for advancement gets tougher and tougher. You need an edge. A Toastmasters club can give you that edge. A low-cost learning experience for men and women. Toastmasters the confidence to express your ideas to anyone. Get the Toastmasters edge.
What future do you envision for yourself? What dreams do you have? If you want your dreams to come true, you must have confidence in yourself and your abilities. A Toastmasters Club can help you build that confidence. A low-cost learning experience for men and women. Toastmasters shows you how to express yourself clearly and effectively. Make your dreams a reality. Join a Toastmasters Club.
Okay. Hey, welcome back to the second half of the Speakers and Leaders Hour. This is the parliamentary section, the part where we talk about Robert's Rules of Order, that great big old book that just was recently published and came out in 2011 in the month of September. That's the book that has everything you need to know about how to conduct a meeting. And quite frankly, we think that you don't quite need all of that. But what we are going to do is we are going to talk about some of the things that you can use in a meeting to make it more fair and effective. And that's what Toastmasters and the parliamentary group is all about. And this is, we always warn people, you know, if you've become a Toastmaster and you become confident and you want to stand up and speak in front of a group, be forewarned that if you do that often enough in your group, you're going to be ending up into an elected position such as president or one of the officers of the club. And if that happens, then you really do need to know how to be a fair and effective leader and how to communicate ideas and how to conduct material. And to that end this evening, we have a couple demonstrations that we're going to do. And our first presenter is going to be our own Dennis Osborn, and he's going to talk about the multiple steps in a main motion and why they are important and how they are used. So let's welcome at this time our own Dennis Osborn.
When I was a little child, my parents would take me to church every single Sunday, no matter what. One week, I think it was the final Sunday of each month, we would stay extra long at church for the church's business meeting. Well, during the summer, that really didn't bother me because as soon as the prayers were done, I was out the door and playing in the yard. But in the middle of winter, when I could not do that, I was stuck in those business meetings. And those business meetings seemed to go on and on and on. Of course, to a little child, a half hour could be going on and on and on. But there were times when what was usually a half-hour meeting actually did drag on to be an hour and a half meeting. It was very stressful and frustrating. And I realized many years later, when I started studying Robert's Rules of Orders and the various things in it, that it was not necessary for those meetings to go on and on and on like that. They were not following the simple steps of motions and presenting the motion, discussing it, voting on it. The number of motions, as Dave introduced, multiple steps, there could be either 6 or in the reference I'm using, which is Robert's Rules for Dummies, is that there are 8 steps to the motion. The first 2, some people don't even consider. They are, step 1, a member rises and addresses the chair, and the chair recognizes that member. It does no good to just shout out a motion when somebody else is speaking. You'll be soundly ignored and told to sit down and be quiet until later. It is only when the chair recognizes the member that the member is then free at that point to present his motion. The third step of making the motion is that the member states his motion. Now, generally people will think about what they want to say and usually say, I move that the club does this, or I move that the club does that. Some people say, I make the motion that the club does such a thing, and that is not proper English and should be discouraged. After the member has made the motion, it is necessary for another club member to second the motion. Now, I consider seconding the motion to be an important step, and it is a step that most of the time people just automatically yell out, second, to carry on or move the meeting along. Now, there are several kinds of secondings. There is the explicit second, which is somebody does say second because they agree with the member and they agree with the motion. But a person who disagrees with that motion can also say second, simply to get the motion in front of the club meeting so that they can soundly defeat it at the vote. Then there is the motion that the second, which isn't actually even said at all. Let's pretend a person makes the motion and suddenly somebody or several people suddenly start discussing that motion. That is called an implied second. The implied second, the reason for having seconds is just to gauge whether or not there is interest in proceeding in discussing the motion. And if somebody is already discussing it, then it is obviously there is interest in it. And finally, if nobody is willing to second, then it's obviously that nobody wants to discuss it, and the chair can then say, since having no interest in discussing it, the motion is not being considered. The fifth step of the motion is when the chair officially restates the motion. As Dave has said in the past meetings, this is the magical moment when the possession of that motion is taken from the person who presented that motion. It is then magically transformed to be owned by everybody in the club. At that point, people can start discussing the merits of the motion, whether it's a good motion, whether it's a bad motion, whether they are for it or opposed to it. Now, when I was that little kid, at those business meetings, there were people who would go on and on and on, and then somebody else would present their sides, and then the first person would come back and go on and on and on, repeating the exact same things over and over again. The point of parliamentary procedure is not to extend the discussion, but to shorten it. The parliamentary procedure can be used to put a time limit on how long a person can speak. If the person starts repeating themselves, it is the chair's prerogative to tap the gavel and basically say, if you have nothing else new to add to this discussion, will you please relinquish the floor to another member so that they can discuss their points of view. When the discussion is lively, or even when it's not, it is typical to alternate between the two sides of the discussion, and starting with the person who actually proposed the original motion. They have generally the right to speak first. And then it is alternated with somebody who's opposed, back and forth, until everybody has had a chance to speak. Now, when debating the motion, people can make changes to it. Now, when the person who presented the motion originally, he may have thought he crafted a work of art and that there should be absolutely no changes at all. I'm sorry, people. Original first drafts are always changeable. I remember an incident many years ago in school when I heard about Thomas Jefferson first presented the American Constitution to Benjamin Franklin. What did Benjamin Franklin did? He got out red ink and his quill and started correcting grammar all over it. Drop participle here, misspelling here. Motions are not always perfect, and there are several ways that they can be changed during the debate to make it better or more reflective of what the club wants to do. There are several methods. You can insert words into the motion, you can strike out words or sentences or even entire paragraphs. You can strike out and insert words, sentences, or paragraphs. And then there is a final method, which is basically what I call the nuclear option, which is amending by substitution, where you can substitute entire paragraphs or entire motions. You can throw out the original motion completely and introduce a new one. But the amended by substitution is not used very often. After the people have made the changes and it has come to a general consensus that there is nothing else that can be done with the motion, the chair then puts the motion to the members and the members vote on it. The chairperson should say, all those in favor say aye. Generally, start off with the voice vote, and all opposed say no. Now, there are several types of votes. There's the voice votes, which in our practice sessions, somebody always yells division, which means they disagree with what the chairperson has said and which side has won the debate. So then we have the rising vote, where we rise hands or physically stand up. We have the counted vote, where people actually count how many is on each side. A roll call vote, where people write down which side the person is voted on. And then there's voting by ballot. Each of these methods can be used depending upon how important the original vote is. And finally, it is up to the chair to announce the result of the vote. If the chair does not announce the results, some people who lost the vote may go away thinking they actually won it. And it is the chair's job to make sure that everybody who understands which way the vote went. Now, with the various votes that I have described, there is always the possibility of having a tied vote. Now, a tied vote is actually considered to be a failed vote, because when if the vote required the simple majority, a tie is not a majority. And while some people say it is always the responsibility of the chair to break a tie, it is most often in the best interest of the chair not to break that tie at all. Because if he votes one way or the other, he's going to have half the club mad at him. If my church had used these steps of a main motion back when I was a little child, I really don't think the meetings would have gone as long as they did. And if I went back there now, I would definitely explain to them that while parliamentary procedure may seem stuffy and slow things down, using these here steps actually speeds up the procedure of motions and the business. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Dennis. That was a terrific presentation. You covered it as well as anybody has in the longest time. Now, the next section that we're going to hear is from the Parliamentary Procedure in Action. That is a workshop that's put out by Toastmasters, And Tom Haller, who is the president of the Advanced Communicator Club, who's been a member of the society now for about a year and a half, the Parliamentary Society, is going to give us part one of Parliamentary Procedure in Action. Let's welcome Tom Haller.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins, fellow Toastmasters and parliamentarians, anyone who's kind enough to listen. We spend a lot of time in meetings. If you're an executive, you may well spend 50 to 75% of your working hours in meetings. After that, we have church and civic activities. We just spend a lot of time in meetings, and it's extremely important that that time be well spent. As has been indicated already, and as most of us have experienced personally, frequently that is not the case. But if you follow proper parliamentary procedures, it can be much more effective. There are certain principles which we aim to meet as parliamentarians to make the meeting fair and equitable. The votes of all voting members are counted equally. No member votes twice, no member's vote is counted more than once. Absent members and members holding minority opinions have rights. Doesn't mean they get to have the final say, but they do have rights. All members have the right of free and fair debate and the right to know the meaning of the motion or question before the assembly and what its effect will be. Reminds me of some of our recent presidential edicts in which people did not know what was coming. But moving on rapidly, the majority has the right to decide and the minority has the right to be protected and to speak on the issue. And I would personally add, the minority has the right to try to persuade enough people that they become the majority. Parliamentary procedure facilitates the transaction of business in harmony and is characterized by fairness and by good faith. The procedures we will be discussing can be helpful whether you're presiding or whether you're just a member. Either way, you need to know how it works and how to be an effective participant. I think that we will skip the part about the history because that has been covered at other times very carefully by our Mr. Wilkins. There are some basic definitions that it would be well to know. One of them is quorum. A quorum is the minimum number of members who must be present for business to be transacted legally. The quorum should be specified in the organization's constitution or bylaws. If no regulation is made, an organization's rules of a quorum, then the quorum is the majority of active members. That word active is very important. Many clubs and organizations have vast numbers of people who wouldn't go to a meeting for anything. Not sure why they're members, but that's the way it is. Constitution contains the basic regulations governing the organization, including such matters as name, purpose, members, officers, meetings, and parliamentary authority. Bylaws. The bylaws contain provisions for their amendment, but usually bylaws are amended infrequently and only after considerable deliberation. Generally, a 2/3 vote is required. So they're not cast in concrete, but they're fairly solid. Bylaws usually do not deal with matters of parliamentary procedure except to the extent that the organization wishes to be governed by procedures different from those provided by parliamentary authority. Standing rules are generally about administration of the organization rather than about parliamentary procedure, and they can be changed by majority vote of the members. For example, an organization may adopt a standing rule that meetings should be scheduled for every Tuesday of each month. For Toastmasters, these meetings are set by the bylaws. Main motions, that's been discussed quite extensively. Presiding officer, that's the person who is in charge of the procedure. Generally would be an elected president, vice president, or chairman. The handling of a main motion has been discussed in some depth and will be discussed in further depth. But basically, just to touch on it, a member is recognized and makes the motion. Another member without recognition seconds the motion. The chair formally places the motion before the group by restating the motion. Now, at this point, it's imperative that the motion be what was put forward. It must be restated in essentially the same form. Sometimes, and this is very annoying when it happens, the chair will insist on phrasing it in its own terms, which may fundamentally change it. And that's not cricket. The members debate the motion, alternating between pro and con. The chair asks if the assembly is ready to vote. Basically, it is the chair's job to try to prod the meeting along. If people have something that they feel is important to say, then they'll say it. But generally speaking, it doesn't hurt to ask if they're ready to vote frequently. The chair announces the result of the vote and designates appropriate action. These are the fundamentals, and they must be followed if you're going to have an effective meeting, and if everybody is to be treated fairly and go away happy, knowing that all that has been done in a fair and appropriate way. And at this point, I will return control to Mr. Wilkins. Mr. Wilkins.
Thank you very much, Tom. And with that background in mind, we're going to take a few moments as we finish off our program this evening and have Marlene conduct a mock meeting. And Marlene, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. First of all, I want to let people know there are basically 4 parts of a good meeting. Number 1, everyone should have a basic understanding of parliamentary procedure, not only the chair, but the members as well. You should always have and follow an agenda. Meetings should start and end on time. Nothing is more frustrating than to get to a meeting on time and then wait and give more consideration to people who walk in late. That's not very nice. And finally, we should always respect all the other members. Now, in order to have an efficient meeting, you should also have some type of an agenda to follow. There are basically 7 steps to an agenda. Number 1, the call to order, the reading of the minutes, the report of officers, boards, or standing committees, reports of special committees, unfinished business, new business, and announcements. So those are the parts of a sample agenda. So we're going to try, we have just a few minutes left, and so we're going to have just a very brief business meeting here. And when I say reading the minutes, sometimes they're distributed, so there's no reading, but we'll go through the steps of the meeting and see what happens. The meeting of the Advanced Speakers and Leaders Hour will now come to order. I believe the minutes have been distributed so that, and I hope you've had a chance to read them. Are there any corrections to the minutes? And by the way, I have here, if I can find it, I have a little stop sign. And when I hold up my stop sign, I'm going to insert things. You noticed I said, are there any corrections to the minutes? Many times people will say, are there any additions or corrections? Well, excuse me, additions are corrections. So all you have to do is say, are there any corrections to the minutes? Are there any?
Chairman, I move the minutes be approved as printed.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It has been moved and second to approve the minutes as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The minutes will stand approved as distributed. Another point. If, instead of his motion to approve the minutes, when I ask for corrections to the minutes, nobody said anything, the chair does have the option of just simply stating, hearing no objections, the minutes will stand approved as distributed. So you don't even need a motion for it. We're going to suspend all the reports of officers, boards, or standing committees. One of the officers' reports at that time would have been the financial report, and any standing committees will have reports of special committees. We're going to also suspend with unfinished business. Note, I said unfinished business. And why did I say unfinished business?
Because it's not old.
Many times you hear people say old business. It's not old, it's unfinished. Now we're going to move to new business. Is there anything to come before the group as far as new business this evening?
Yes, Madam Chairperson.
Dennis, you'll notice he spoke. I recognized him. Dennis?
Yes, I'd like to bring to attention to the set decorations here on Access Fort Wayne, I'm sorry to say. The tree, which is common for shows like this, I'm sorry to say is getting very old and rugged looking. I move that the club goes and purchases 1 or 2 trees for Access Fort Wayne.
Is there a second?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded that this club purchase, did I hear 2 new trees for the set?
Yes.
For Access Fort Wayne. The chair will now entertain discussion. Tom.
No. Okay.
Madam Toastmaster, I am a master gardener. I believe that we could save these trees. I would, rather than to spend money for new ones, I would like to take them to the next Master Gardener meeting and see if we couldn't revive them.
Okay, now, you notice one thing that happened here that should have not happened when we had discussion. Dennis made the motion, correct? So he should have had a chance to speak first. And I should have recognized Dennis first. Instead, Tom spoke up, which is okay, but if Dennis would have stood up and said, wait a minute, it's my turn to speak first. So that would have been a good case of handling the way the motion, we would have gone positive, negative, and back and forth.
Madam Chairman, inasmuch as time is running out, I would move that this be referred to a committee of 3 people that you might appoint after the show is over this evening. And as we go off, I want to say thank you again to Bob and Patty Hunter for being here this evening and helping out, along with Paul Brandt, Elizabeth Lord, Dennis Osborn for putting this all together this evening, and my panel of Marlene Purdy, Dennis Osborn, Leon Kowalenko, and Tom Haller, and of course you folks for watching. This has been a very fun evening, and I think that we can probably save these trees if we act fast. May all your meetings be fair and efficient, and God bless and good night.